Hello everybody. Alright, so if you haven't yet, I suggest reading the last article that I posted last night because it kind of gives you a little jonesing for what's to come in this video. Alright, so I feel that it is necessary to just get it out of the way and give some disclaimers. One, this video is probably going to be long as F. I'm sorry. It's just going to happen. And the fact of the matter is, I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to keep going because guess what? With this webcam, I haven't figured out how I can like stop it and then continue it. So if I mess up, I have to start from the beginning and I'm not trying to be here all night. Alright, another disclaimer. If you are familiar with other blogs that discuss different issues, here's a trigger warning. Meaning, I'm going to talk about some serious stuff. Shit's about to get real. So just a warning. Or, you know, if you've experienced something and you think, you know, this might be a trigger for you, it might make you really uncomfortable, I suggest turning this off now. But given recent events, I actually feel that this is necessary. Not gonna lie to you, I'm terrified right now, and I ask that any comments that you make are respectful, because I'm about to really put myself out there. So, yeah, alright. I actually even have a little script. Wasn't intended to be a script, but I started writing this last night, and then it occurred to me that I felt I might be more effective via video, as you'll see my face and hear my expressions, and hell, some people digest things better visually than reading. Alright, so I'll just use this slightly, and then we're going to go off the beaten path and just see what the hell happens. Okay, it's been an insane work week. I haven't updated this nearly as much as I'd like to. As far as Women's History Month, and pretty much everything else. The big thing on my mind, and with a lot of other people's minds this week, is the whole Steubenville rape situation, the trial, and everything. And I've read a whole lot of amazing things that other people have written, but I feel I have a lot to say about this subject that's relevant, and I think my perspective is very valid, and I think it could help people that I know have some insight on a topic that we're hearing a lot about, but I feel the conversation isn't necessarily going where it's supposed to, or that the more conversation, the better about this topic, sexual violence in general. And there are so many things that have been running through my brain surrounding this case. There's a 12-minute video online of the football players involved who raped this young woman who was passed out drunk. Laughing about her rape, using the word rape, saying how dead she was because she was passed out, and then just tweets back and forth, and pictures of them carrying her around, which, I mean, thank goodness for social media, because that's probably the evidence that is getting, you know, the people, that's allowing us to hold these people accountable, because the bystanders certainly weren't stepping up. Young men urinating on this girl, saying some people just deserve to be like pissed on, like shit like this, okay? It really upsets me. The terrible questions the defense was asking the witness, or this, like the things they were bringing up, essentially blaming her, like, well, she was drinking, well, sometimes you get raped when you drink, ladies, it's your fault. That's essentially what they were saying, and it made me really upset. Okay, and then of course, the media, how they discussed the punishment and the verdict of the young men. Okay, and here's the part where I pause because I've really wanted to talk about this. However, I felt that I really haven't been in the proper mind frame to deliver the information to my readers in a way that would be productive and educational. Disclosure, like, you know, I think it's important to say where I'm coming from. This is not an issue. Sexual violence and rape, specifically date rape or in situations where alcohol or drugging is involved. This is not an issue that I can be, like, calm, cool, and collected about. I've told myself, you know, this is why I haven't written about this thus far, just because I don't think it's useful for me to just rant about this and say fuck a lot, and that's pretty much where I was going. Because obviously that's not going to make me sound very credible, and it's not going to teach you guys a whole lot. And I was trying to figure out what to say and how to say it, and then I realized I'm absolutely 100% credible to talk about sexual violence. In the literal sense, because I've been certified to discuss the topic, like actual certification. And here's where the script goes away. All right, here we go. When I was a freshman in college, I applied to be part of SVVA at Edinburgh, which stands for Sexual Violence Victims Awareness Advocates. And essentially, advocates were to go around the school with different clubs, fraternities, sports teams, classes, dorms, and discuss various aspects of sexual violence. If we felt comfortable, we were also available to talk to students who had experienced sexual violence or heard about something that happened, and be there for them to talk to, or to simply have an advocate, if they didn't feel comfortable going to the police or talking to school officials, etc. And I guess it's always been an issue that I cared about. I can't pinpoint exactly why, but I always thought rape was a huge deal, which it is. But to be fair, a lot of my mindset about what rape meant for women came from horrible Lifetime movies, which to me, in my mind, like 13-year-old Jessie watching movies, like, oh my god, if I'm raped, it's literally the worst thing that could ever happen to me. I'll probably never be able to have sex ever again, and I'll be terrified of men forever. That's what Lifetime told me about rape. It's not true. Anywho, pretty much how this is going to go, because I realized once I had my epiphany in the car, and on an NPR they were actually discussing this topic, and that's when I realized I'm not giving myself enough credit when I say I can't talk to you guys about this, because I was in SVVA for 3 years. In fact, I was even invited back after I graduated to train new members and to even give my presentation again, because it's pretty awesome. But I've spoken about this topic, and what I'm about to tell you, the whole shabam, I've literally done in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. Freshman classes, like I said, sororities, dorms, clubs, everything. So while I was really nervous, because this is obviously a different forum, I'm telling you this story from my bedroom, I've actually told this story in front of hundreds of people. When all is said and done, I've probably done this presentation like at least 50 times, and of course it evolved over the years, but in any case, I was assigned to discuss date rape drugs, and I would tell you about how sexual assault is when something is done against someone's will in a sexual manner, whether that's penetration with a penis, an object, whether it's oral or anal or vaginal, any of that, and that's what rape is. And then I would tell you that 1 in 4 women experience rape in her lifetime. Look around the room, is a classroom or something, do the math. They say 1 in 6 men experiences sexual assault as well, so this is an issue that affects a lot of people. 90% of campus rapes involve alcohol or drugs. 75% of rapes in general involve alcohol or drugs. Obviously, inhibitions are lowered. It clouds judgment for all parties, all the good stuff. And then I would tell you a little bit about various date rape drugs, like GHB, which was originally sold as a sleeping aid in health stores. And then they took them off the shelves when they realized some people were randomly going to comas and dying. For the record, also, all this information that I'm spouting off right now, this is somewhere in my basement in one of the many boxes labeled sentimental stuff. But I wasn't going to dig that out, so frankly I'm going to go all off memory, and I hope you're alright with that, because that's what's happening. Alright, GHB. Effects. Pretty much, a person would go comatose for 8 to 10 hours. It takes effect within 5 to 20 minutes, and they would wake up, hopefully if they woke up, with no recollection of what happened to them. In conjunction with alcohol, this is extremely potent, because if you're drinking, most people, if they're drugged, they don't suddenly have a drink, oh my god, I've been drugged, holy shit. It's like, no, you know, oh my gosh, I maybe drink more than I thought, and then the next thing you know, they're passed out. Roofies, of course, Rohypnol, which is actually still legal in many countries for other uses, also called, like, the forget-me-not pill, for obvious reasons. Ketamine, which is used as an anesthetic for young children and pets. And that's the most expensive one, or at least it was when I gave my presentation, a couple years back, and that was like at $20 a pop. So, really easy to get all of these drugs, and then something fun that I found out from actually someone that I know who dated somebody who did this with just Tylenol PM. Not freaking cool. All right. So when there's a sexy time situation, there has to be consent. Consent means I would rather think of it as the presence of yes rather than there not being a no. No means no. Well, if you're passed out, you can't give consent. If you're really, really drunk, you cannot give consent. Now, as far as the law goes, Pennsylvania state law says that it is illegal to give someone a drug to incapacitate them. It is illegal to actually purposely incapacitate them by feeding them alcohol with that intent. That's not okay. Also, it is illegal to engage in sexual activity with someone who was passed out or incapacitated. That's rape. That's what that is. Legal definitions. So we can get out of the way that. And what's really messed up, and this is a study that has been around, is that various studies with high school students show that 40% of males and 20% of females felt that if a woman is drunk, it's okay that she's raped. Think about that. It's really messed up. And one of the big messages I wanted to get across was that it's never okay to rape somebody. No woman asks to be raped. I don't care how many drinks you've had. You don't give up the consent of your body. You don't. After how many drinks is someone allowed to, against my will, have sex with me? Let's think about this. But sadly, culturally, this is something that's accepted. And there's a lot of victim blaming going on, specifically in that Steubenville case. Well, she was drunk, so. And what's fascinating with this is that when the rapists have been drinking, it somehow makes them less culpable, less blamable, but it makes the victim more at fault for her own rape. All right. So think about what it must be like if this has happened to someone. Oftentimes they'll wake up, maybe not know where they are, their clothes might be disheveled, and having no clue what the fuck has happened. That's terrifying. And what's so horrible is that how easily these drugs pass through your body. If someone wakes up from this, they're so confused and disoriented. They don't know that they need to go get a rape kit. They don't know that if they shower or remove their clothing or go to the bathroom, evidence could be destroyed. And what's so tragic is that oftentimes when people wake up from having this happen to them, they don't put the pieces together till later, till it might be too late. Rape kits, obviously physical evidence that something has happened. Literally, your body is the crime scene that needs to be investigated. Especially if someone is drugged, they're not a very good witness. And this is part of the reason why I believe the statistic has gone up, but when I gave this presentation a couple years ago, 16% of rapes are reported. 16%. Less than 3% of rapists will ever serve a day of time for their crime. And there's a lot of different reasons for this. Women feel shamed, they feel terrified, and they just want it to be over. Tragic. So then what I would move into is talking about risk reduction tactics. Things to just try to reduce your risk. And we don't like saying prevention because, again, that kind of puts all of the responsibility on the woman. And one of the big reasons why we as a group focused more on educating and I guess empowering women as far as risk reduction tactics go is that with the exception of my first year, all of us in the club were women, and we were very fearful of approaching men and having it be like a women versus men thing and say, hey guys, don't rape, don't do this, you know what I mean? So we focused a lot of our efforts on risk reduction tips for women, which frankly I kind of regret at this point, but you know. And some of those include just when you go out, use the buddy system. Go with a girlfriend or with one of your guy friends and say, hey, like, we're leaving together, no matter what. Watch your drink. It's ridiculous. And this is frankly something my mother's been telling me since I was like 5. Like, hey, look both ways before you cross the street. Watch your drink. This is good freaking advice. Seriously. Or if someone gets you a drink and you're not really sure about them, if you get a vibe, trust your gut. It's there for a reason. Or, like, how about you try it? try it first. Most of these drugs, they don't change the taste of a drink, so that's not really helpful. Just don't go anywhere with someone if you don't know them well yet. Sadly, though, I mean, when we think about rape, we think of the man in the bushes. We think of the person with the ski mask on. 80% of women know their rapist. So yeah. Now, there are a lot of statistics at you, risk reduction tactics, things not to do. Alright, and here's where shit's gonna get real. I had sat through so many of these bullshit presentations when I was younger, and for the record, when I did this back in the day, I didn't swear. Or I think I did maybe once or twice, but not like this, but whatever. And, you know, we listen to these when we think about drugs and alcohol, like how the guy, like the police officer from DARE would come tell you, like, statistics about drugs and alcohol and all this crap, and, you know, you would hear things about rape or whatever. And me personally, like, always thought, like, just disconnected. Like, you hear about it and it's sad, but you don't connect it to. Like, this is not something that would ever happen to me. Especially, like, 18-year-old Jessie. Pause. Roommates. Anyway, 18-year-old Jessie was arguably way more responsible and on her stuff about not letting things happen. I was really big about risk reduction, like just being aware of my surroundings. I was Miss Perfect, you know, very responsible. Throughout my whole freshman year of college, I had only had drinks maybe twice. And so yeah, I'd sit through these presentations and they would do absolutely nothing. Because I thought it would never happen to me. And then it happened to me. Here we go. So yeah, if this is too heavy for you, feel free to turn this off, but this is where we're going. Alright, why am I about to tell this story? Alright, this is exactly how it played out in my presentation that I did many times in front of hundreds of people, which, let me tell you, took guts. So, about 2 weeks into summer vacation after freshman year of college, I was raped. It was awful, and it was a roller coaster of emotions and everything you could possibly think of. And it was really ironic that I was given the topic of date rape drugs to cover for SVBA. And I hadn't told anybody, and it was September, and we were supposed to give, I was giving my presentation for the very first time to the peer educators group. And it was exactly how I gave it to you, pretty much ended on empowering risk reduction tips, you know. And I was about to go out there and give my presentation to about 25 people, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it at all. Like, why should I give this presentation? It's not going to mean anything. Like, I heard stuff like this all the time, and it did nothing for me. And damn it, like, if this happened to me, it has to be worth it. Like, people need to understand, you know? You hear statistics all the time. It's really different to see someone in front of you that says, hey, this happened to me. So I pulled Dr. Seipel, who's the most amazing woman I've ever met, aside, and she was a psychologist too, and she specialized, you know, in victim counseling, and she also was, you know, the advisor for our club. And I told her, so, gotta be honest, I was raped like 2 months ago, and I kind of feel like it might be a waste of time for me to just give these statistics, because frankly, sorry, but I sat through these too, and it meant nothing to me. It didn't hit me at all, and I didn't think it would ever happen to me, and then it happened to me. And do you think it's a horrible idea if I tell my story, like, in my presentation? And she's like, oh my gosh, like, I think that would be really, really powerful. Do you think you can handle that? And I'm like, well, let's, you know, see how this shit goes. Yeah. So, I don't know how in-depth I'm going to get now, but this is exactly like that moment. Because I had no intentions of doing that, and then I just went out and kind of talked. And, yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, talk about risk reduction, like me thinking I was in a safe surrounding. One, I was at cheerleading training for, like, to teach, like, cheerleading camps. Like, 100 people, maybe 10 dudes, were at cheerleading camps, so, you know, a lot of them were gay. If there were ever a safe time for me to, like, you know, drink, you think this would be it. And we were in a dorm. It's not like we were going anywhere. I knew I didn't have to worry about drunk driving or getting into car crash or any of that because we were all just staying in the same place. And then there's my just horrible aversion to alcohol that's not going away to this day. Like, I hate the taste of it. So I had one sip of one drink and that was it. Also, by now, these people, we had been together for about a week, like I said, about the 100 of us, seriously dancing and cheering and learning all this stuff in this horribly hot gym for like 13, 14, 15 hours a day. So we were all bonded. Like, I trusted these people. And there was this one guy, and, you know, he seemed really friendly. Like I said, we were, you know, all kind of doing the thing together, whatever. And he's like, why aren't you drinking anything? And I'm like, because it tastes disgusting. And as I said before, you know, at this point I've drank maybe twice in my life. And he's like, oh, well, you know, I have stuff in my room. Like, I can make you something, like, that tastes good. Like, it won't be yucky. Like, have you ever had rum before? And I'm like, no, I haven't. He's like, well, it's really, really smooth. You won't taste anything. Great. So, go back to his room. I don't see him make the drink. I'm not thinking, like, why would I think about this, you know? He gives me the drink, and he was right. It tasted fine. Like, and I drank the whole thing. And it was in a yellow water bottle, which I'll never forget. And, I mean, basically from then on, I'm not going to get incredibly graphic, but the night was just in pieces. I don't remember very much. I remember just, like, feeling horribly tired and thinking it was physically impossible for me to get back to my room, which was on, like, the opposite, like, wing of the building. Like, physically impossible. And being really tired. And I remember at one point, like, him saying, like, well, you can just stay in my room. And I, like, you know, Feminist Jessie came out. I was like, listen, buddy. If we go to your room, we're sleeping. Nothing's happening. Nothing. I said that. And he's like, oh, you know, okay. So we go back to his room. And then he put on some R. Kelly. So if there were any chance of anything happening, gone then. And then he brushed his teeth. And then, you know, I don't remember a whole lot after that. I remember him touching me. And I remember saying no. I didn't scream. I don't know why. And the distinct memory of laying down and physically not being able to lift my arms. And then that's all I remember. And I woke up in the morning and I felt terrified. And I ran back to my room, and then I just had this physical feeling. I knew something had happened. That's pretty much how all I can explain it to you. I knew what had happened because I could feel that something had happened. It's really an eloquent way to put that. And I was so confused. So confused. And at this point I hadn't had my training yet. I didn't understand, and I was really lost, like trying to remember what happened. Not being able to remember what happened. And he was friendly to me after that, so it's like, wait, if he did something to me, why is he being so friendly to, like, massive confusion. And then, like, a couple days later, getting sent across the country to Illinois to teach cheerleading camps. And by now I knew what had happened. I hadn't verbalized it yet, but I knew that I needed to get tested. I knew that I needed a pregnancy test, and I was out in Illinois where there were more freaking cows than people. Pretty much no exaggeration there. And then ironically, 2 weeks later, I had to come back to Pennsylvania to go to the training for SBVA. And there I was also able to go get tested and get a pregnancy test, and, you know, all was good on that front, thankfully. And being through the training was surreal because learning about everything I told you about, it was like learning about my experience. That's when I was able to actually say, like, wow, I was raped. Saying that out loud. And it was just very, very hard to deal with, and, like, really realizing that alcohol doesn't do that. What it did to me, and, like, even now telling you guys about it, like, I know that sounds so freaking stupid. Like, obviously alcohol doesn't do that, but when I was in that situation at the time, I couldn't do anything. I wasn't aware, you know what I mean? Like, now if something like that were to happen, I would understand, like, okay, one drink does not, it shouldn't be like that, you know? And it just, I use the words no. I shouldn't have had to scream it. I shouldn't have had to physically fight him back. I made what I wanted very clear. And I physically wasn't able to fight him back. And, pretty much that summer just kind of sucked. I mean, dealing with that, there were only a couple people I told. And at that point, like, sex was a really huge deal. It's still a pretty big deal, you know what I mean? But at that time I'd only been with one person that I was with for like 3 years that I thought I was going to marry, and then just feeling like something had been taken away from me because now, you know, this happened. My mom confronted me because she got the insurance bill from the place where I got tested and everything. And having to tell my mom what happened was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. And she allows me to, she didn't react the way you're supposed to react to a victim, which is to just accept them. Don't question why they did this. Don't try to force them. And it's funny, and this is one of the reasons why I feel my experience is really valid, especially more so now, because before, even though I cared about these issues, I never understand. And I actually said blatantly, like, people like, I don't understand why so few people report rape. If that happened to me, I'm going to get that person in jail. Well, I completely understand now because I just wanted it to be over. I wanted to move on. I wanted to pretend like it never happened. And my mom was like on me, like, you need to report this. And I'm like, no. And I didn't want to report it. I wanted to move on. And that was kind of the game plan until I was going to Lord knows where else, I think Indiana this time. Went to a lot of I-states that summer. With another guy who went to school with my rapist. And he came up in conversation. The guy was like, I don't like him at all. I was like, really? You know, how come? And he's like, because he raped one of my teammates. And that's when it really hit it for me. Everything. And this is something I learned in training too. Just people, men when they do this, and I'm not saying that all men are rapists, obviously they're not. But the men that do this, they get away with it. And they do it. They keep doing it because they keep getting away from it. And I realized, like, oh my god, I was so freaking mad. Like, this happened to someone else. It's going to happen to other people. Like, I need to stop this. And I said I wanted to press charges. Like, I talked to my mom about it, and she's like, cool, we're going to talk to our lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And I talked to a lawyer, and he said, I'm really sorry, but there's no way in hell this will ever go anywhere in court. One, about a month has passed. There's absolutely no physical evidence, obviously, because a month has passed. And there were only 2 people there, and as you were incapacitated for the actual rape, you're not a very good witness. And that was pretty much it. You know, my power had been taken away. And especially after I decided I wanted to do something about it. So, yeah, I started telling the story. And the story I just told you, I've told, like I said, 50, 60 times in front of, by now, thousands of people. And initially, it was a story that ended on a pretty bleak note. I'm like, well, if this happens to me, this sucks. I just want other people to know that, like, you know, beware of your surroundings because it might happen to you, which is so depressing. But over time, obviously, it evolved. And for me, it was a giant therapy. Giant therapy. And a lot of good came from it. I've been really, really touched by how many people I did not know would email me or message me on Facebook who saw me speak and just say, like, hey, like, it's really freaking admirable that you had the courage to do that. On the sadder note, because I put myself out there, because I was an advocate, I spoke to a lot of girls who had been raped, who had never told anyone before. Some of them who had been raped when they were, like, 15 or 16, and now as a 20-year-old coming to me saying, you're the only person I've ever told. And it's like, oh my gosh, you know? And it started off as something like me saying, like, you know what, this happened to me, I can't make it go away, so I have to make it worth it. I have to help others. And I feel that I've done that. If I've helped one person feel better about their experience or feel less alone, or if I've helped one person be more aware of their surroundings or look out for their girlfriends more, I'm okay with it happening to me. And really, like, that's huge. And as far as blame goes, because they say, like, you know, a huge thing that victims go through is they blame themselves. They blame themselves over and over. And I'm type A, I'm a perfectionist, so I'm really proficient at beating myself up. And I blamed myself a lot. In fact, it's really sad, but and those of you who have read my blog before, I actually got into this in my Tosh article. While overtly I was not blaming myself, I definitely was inwardly still. I still felt like it was my fault. I still ran through it in my head, like, why didn't I watch this guy make my drink? Why didn't I realize the second I started feeling woozy that, hey, like, alcohol doesn't do this right away, like, you know? And then something really interesting happened. I was giving a presentation to a freshman dorm, and, you know, randomly while I was speaking, this dude stands up and was like, you weren't raped. You were drinking. What happens, happens. Something to that effect. While I'm speaking about this in front of like 50 people. And I was so taken back, like, oh my gosh. And I have to keep my composure because I'm in front of a whole lot of people. And I have to somehow, you know, turn this into something that's not awful. And I did it. Like, and I said, excuse me. First of all, I'm speaking. I'm presenting right now. You have, like, question Q&A later, buddy. Second of all, I could have been having a soda, and this could have happened to me. The effects that happened to me, being comatose, that doesn't happen from drinking. Literally losing, like, laying on a bed, not being able to lift my limbs. Alcohol doesn't do that. And again, PA state law is on my side. You are not allowed to drug someone, and you're not allowed to have sex with somebody if they're passed out or incapacitated. And I paused, because I felt like I had to say something else. And I was like, by the way, also, no girl in this room is ever going to have sex with you. And then I got a round of applause, and it was totally awesome. But something else happened when that jerk face decided to, you know, try to rain on my parade. Like, I said those words, like, it wasn't my fault. It could have been a soda. And something just, like, clicked in my head. And I went home that night, and I, like, blogged, my private blog, and I was like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Oh my gosh, like, it's so silly, but like I said the words and I believed it. And that was, like, a really big turning point, too, because, harking back to what I said earlier, I think part of the reason possibly why my experience was so horrible initially was because how I was socialized to believe, what I was socialized to believe rape meant. That it's like a life ruiner, all that good stuff. And it wasn't. And what's more, like, and we got into discussions in this in my club too. I don't want to be like, hey, I'm Jessica, I'm a rape survivor. You know? No, I'm Jessica. My experiences absolutely make up part of who I am, but this is not going to be my identifier. Absolutely not. And this isn't going to define me for the rest of my life. It's certainly not going to define my relationships with the amazing men in my life, or my dating relationships. And so, as I said, this progressed. My presentation itself progressed as my healing process happened. And it ended with me being like, hey, guess what? Like, I'm standing here. I'm a successful person. I, you know, graduated summa cum laude. I am a very social person. I've had wonderful, wonderful romantic relationships with some amazing men after this happened. And this doesn't mean it's the end of my life. It doesn't have to be this horrible black stain. Like, this is something that if it happens to you, is it awful? Absolutely. But you can go forward and you can move on from it. And again, talking with women who experienced this, going to the hospital with women who needed rape kits that didn't want to tell their friends, like, you know, it means a lot to see somebody stand up and say, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And, wow, I'm talking for 33 minutes. Those of you who are still here, okay, good for you. This presentation definitely lasted like 45 back in the day. In any case, part of the reason why I'm telling you this right now is because I feel like it's not fair for me to go and post things about sexual violence and talk about it without you knowing this is something I've actually been through. And so yes, I'm going to have feelings about it. But at this point, I don't think having a lot of passion and having a lot of feelings about this invalidates what I have to say or my credibility. Because as I said, I actually am certified to discuss this, but I also have a unique perspective. And like we say, 1 in 4 women is raped. Okay. Hi, this is my face. I'm one of them, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it. And I just think it's really, really important that we put faces to things. And I mean, I can't deny that in different areas, this is definitely like being with like a boyfriend and have his friends joke about date rape drugs, and me being like, hey, like, can we not make jokes about roofies, please? Thanks. And just that, you know? I definitely look at things in a different way. I'm more cognizant of being aware of things at the bar. I've been to parties and totally cock-blocked a dude who was like trying to like drag a girl upstairs, and I'm like, sweetie honey. He's like, are you friends with her? I'm like, no, but I think she's safer with me than with you, you tool bag. Go away. Alright, so yeah. I'm wrapping it up. Pretty much, I'm going to be writing more about this whole Steubenville thing in a lot of different aspects. And given where I am now, it's going to be a lot of society stuff, like how our system, and this is part of my condoms, chlamydia, consent thing, I suppose, is that, you know, we should be talking about consent and rape more in depth right along when we talk about condoms and what a vagina is and what a penis is and how they work and all that stuff, because this is extremely relevant. If you're having sex, you should be able to talk with your partner about, hey, do we both want to do this? All right? If you can't have the discussion, you shouldn't be having sex. Like people who are too embarrassed to bring condoms or to talk about condoms are like, hey, are we safe? Are you safe? What was the last time you got tested? Cool. All right, cool. Let's go. You know, like if you can't have, if you're too embarrassed to be doing that, having those conversations, you really shouldn't be having sex. Seriously. Huh. All right. So, yeah. I just disclosed a lot. For those of you who are still with me, thank you. And typically, well, every time I ever gave this presentation, this is the part where I open dialogue. So, if you have any questions, or comments, please message me. Or if you want to talk about something. This is obviously very private. But this is a discussion I think more people should be having. I hear a lot of victim blaming out there, and I think that's part of the reason why so few women feel comfortable saying, hey, this happened. Like, if I were robbed in an alley, I wouldn't be ashamed and tell very few people that I was robbed in an alley. You know what I mean? Just like, rape is pretty much the only crime where if it happens, the victim is interrogated rather than the perpetrator, because our system tends to identify more with the perpetrator. It's wrong. And I think that's playing out right now on national television with CNN talking about how 2 young men's lives were ruined because they will be labeled sexual offenders for the rest of their lives. Well, they shouldn't have raped. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve any empathy or pity. Do I think they were failed by being sentenced? Absolutely not. Were they failed by being taken to trial? No, they were failed where somewhere along the way they were told that it was okay to treat another human being like this. That is our failure. And I don't think it's fair to put all the blame on parents, because this is a societal thing. We don't live in a bubble. And I think that's where the big discussion point has to happen is, how do we teach people to not treat other human beings like this? That's what the issue is. All right. Wow. All right. Well, again, thank you for listening. I hope this wasn't as much of a Debbie Downer as I had kind of put it out to be, because I really don't mean it to be, because, you know, I'm good. But alright, more women's history stuff later, but I hope you all learned something, and I hope that this starts some positive discussions. So thank you for listening, truly thank you, and have a great night.